Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, messages found on electronic devices have linked a 14-year-old boy in Australia to a major anti-terror operation that happened over the weekend. We have the latest on that report. U.S. authorities have arrested and charged 6 men here in the U.S. in the states of Minnesota and here in the state of California. We have the latest information. U.S. warship heads to Yemeni waters to block Iranian weapons. In Somalia tonight, a bomb kills UN workers. And an earthquake kills one off the coast of Taiwan. We have all those stories and more, plus the latest on the UK elections on tonight's Evan Miller Report, plus Corey Evan.
Thank you, Jay. And Spain in today's international news are no holiday, I assure you. Back home in the U.S., we have some domestic disputes to bring to you, including one about a mother who encouraged her teenage daughter to get in a fight. Yeah. Obama's travels to the Everglades are sure to make Jay's blood boil, everyone, in our continuing battle against global socialism. Temporarily displaced Walmart workers are crying foul to the courts in our business news. Southwest Airlines implicated in our lawsuits across America? You might want to buckle up for this story. And the trailers are out for Jurassic World and the Star Wars end. It's like the Flintstones and the Jetsons coming back together. And that's all coming up in today's installment of your conservative news source. The Evan Miller Report starts now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Monday, April the 20th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan, and I hope everyone's having a good Monday. Rather windy around these parts of town, but at the same time, it's rather nice out here. Hope it's nice where you are, Jay.
Yes, beautiful out here today. We all hope you had a great weekend and enjoyed the weekend. And we welcome you here to the Evan Miller Report for this Monday. Corey Evan will be back in a couple minutes. He has a major update on that migrant boat sinking over the coast of Italy over the weekend. He'll have that update in just a couple minutes. But first, ladies and gentlemen, we start off tonight in Australia, where a message is found on a device linked to a 14-year-old boy from Blackburn has led a major anti-terror operation in Australia. You remember we brought you this story before the close of the broadcast on Friday. Greater Manchester Police said from the UK said the boy was held on suspicion of involvement in preparing an act of terror. Officers said they had uncovered a credible terrorist threat. Australian police have confirmed it was linked to the arrest of 5 teenagers in Melbourne over alleged plans to target Anzac Day commemorations. In a joint statement, Victoria Police and Australian Federal Police said they can confirm a link between the arrest of a 14-year-old boy in Blackburn, Lancashire, in the United Kingdom on Saturday with Operation Rising, a joint counter-terrorism team operation in the UK. Australian police arrested 5 men on Saturday, that's Friday here in the US, and 2 remain in custody. The other 3 have been released, but police have said that 1 man is expected to be charged on weapons offenses. The 14-year-old was first arrested in Blackburn on April the 2nd. He was detained again this past Saturday after officers from the Northwest Counter-Terrorism Unit in Lancashire Consbury searched an address in Blackburn under a warrant and examined a number of electronic devices. They then allegedly discovered messages to a man in Australia. And stay with the Evan Miller Report for the latest on the Australia terror raids. We'll keep you updated with the latest information as it becomes available. Back here at home, U.S. authorities have arrested and charged 6 men in the U.S. state of Minnesota with conspiring to support the Daesh militant group. The 6 men allegedly have plans to travel to Syria, where they would then join and fight with the group. According to court documents, they say the men tried to fly from airports in San Diego and New York City, but were stopped before doing so. Officials say at least one person from Minnesota has died fighting with Daesh. Authorities say the 6 men met secretly to develop their travel plans, which included flying to countries near Syria from airports in U.S. cities of Minneapolis, San Diego, and New York City. The men, who authorities consider to be friends, did not have any plans to carry out any attack in the United States, according to prosecutors. Shakir Yusuf Abdir, 19, Adin Abdin Farrar, 19, Hadid Mashif Masin, 19, and Jalid Al-Omar, 20, were arrested in Minneapolis yesterday. Abdur Yashin Daeed, 21, and Mohammed Abfari, 21, drove from Minneapolis to San Diego before their arrest. 3 of the arrested men had traveled to New York back in November of last year with a man who was en route to Syria and has since been indicted on charges of conspiring to support Daesh. They were confused young men. They were not easily influenced. Minnesota U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar said they were focused men who were intent on joining a terrorist organization by any means possible. End of quote. Their arrests are part of a months-long investigation into the recruitment of Westerners by the likes of Daesh. Authorities say that a handful of other Minnesota residents have been successful in their attempts to join Daesh in the past year. The Minnesota area is home to the largest concentration of Somali immigrants in the U.S. Since 2007, at least 22 Somali men have traveled overseas to support the likes of Daesh or the terrorist group Al-Shabaab, a separate militant group based in Somalia. The 6 men, as we stay, range in age from 19 to 21 and are expected to appear in courts in Minnesota and California sometime today. The men arrested in San Diego are expected to be returned to Minnesota. In a stepped-up response to Iranian backing of Shiite rebels in Yemen, the Navy aircraft carrier U.S. Theodore Roosevelt is steaming toward the waters of Yemen to beef up security and to join other American ships that are prepared to intercept any Iranian vessels carrying weapons to the Houthi rebels in the region. The deployment comes after a UN Security Council resolution approved last week imposed an arms embargo on leaders of the Iranian-backed Shiite Houthi rebels. The resolution passed a 14-0 vote with the country of Russia abstaining. Navy officials said Monday that the Roosevelt was moving through the Arabian Sea, a massive ship that carries F-A-18 fighter jets, and the Roosevelt is seen for more of a deterrent and show of force in the region. The U.S. Navy had been beefing up its presence in the Gulf of Aden and the southern Arabian Sea in response to reports that a convoy of about 8 Iranian ships is heading towards Yemen and possibly carrying arms for the Houthis. Navy officials said there are about 9 U.S. warships in the region, including cruisers and destroyers carrying teams that can board and search other vessels. The officials spoke on conditional anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the ship movement on the record. Saudi Arabia and several of its allies, mainly Gulf Arab countries, have been trying to drive back the rebels who seized the capital of Sana'a back in September of last year and have overrun many other northern provinces with the help of security forces loyal to former President Ali Abdul Saleh. The U.S. supports the Saudi campaign. And speaking of Iran, a Washington Post journalist who was detained 9 months ago in that country is facing 4 charges, including espionage, according to his lawyer. The paper's Tehran correspondent Jason Reznin is accused of collaborating with the hostile governments and spreading propaganda. According to his lawyer, Mr. Reznin was arrested in July and charged in December, but the accusations against him were not known until now. The Washington Post has called the charges, quote, absurd and despicable. A statement from the paper's executive director, Martin Barron, accused Iran of an indefensible silence and having kept Mr. Reznin in jail for 9 months without revealing why. It has urged Iran to clear the name of its correspondent and his wife, Yavin Shalin, who is also a journalist and was taken into custody back in July of last year. Australia and Iran have agreed to share intelligence about Australians fighting with militant groups in Iraq. Foreign Minister Julie Bishop has said the deal will help both countries in their efforts to tackle the likes of Daesh. She added that Australia would have access to information gathered by Iranian operatives in Iraq. Ms. Bishop spoke after a meeting with President Hassan Rouhani during her first visit to that country. About 100 Australians are believed to have traveled to Iraq and Syria to fight with Daesh, with authorities warning they present a serious threat to domestic security. There are also concerns about supporters of Daesh and other radical groups within Australia. A suicide bomb attack on a UN vehicle in Garouri, the main city in Somalia's Puntland region, has killed 7 people, according to police in the region. The UN's Children's Fund UNICEF says 4 of its staff are among the dead. Police Commander Ahmed Abdul Shamirter says that he believes that one of the bodies belongs to the man who blew himself up. Al-Shabaab, which is battling Somalia's government for control of the country, has said it carried out the attack. Witnesses have told the BBC that 10 people were killed, but this has not been confirmed. UNICEF said that in addition to those killed, 4 other of its staff are in serious condition. And Ethiopia on Tuesday will begin 3 days of national mourning for more than 20 Ethiopian Christians killed by the likes of Daesh militants in Libya. Ethiopian Communications Minister Redwan Hussein told the AFP news agency today that Parliament would lodge the official start of the mourning period on Tuesday, while state television and flags would all fly at half-mast. The murderers have horrified pardon me. Let me start that again. The murderers have horrified Ethiopians and sparked global commendation, including Pope Francis, who expressed great distress and sadness over the shocking violence. A 29-minute video released on Sunday by the likes of Daesh purportedly shows the militants in Libya holding 2 groups of captives, describing in text captions as followers of the cross from the enemy Ethiopian church. A masked fighter in black, brandishing a pistol, makes a statement threatening Christians if they do not convert to Islam. The video then switches between footage of one group of about 12 men being beheaded by masked militants on a beach and another group of at least 16 being shot in the head in a desert area. Wow. Just shocking, ladies and gentlemen, how the government of Ethiopia cannot get a grip on this problem, and that more Christians are dying each day, and the same thing goes for the countries of Nigeria. Just a disturbing fact tonight. Alright, moving on to Asia tonight, where 1 person has been killed in Taiwan's capital, Taipei, in a house fire following a 6.6 magnitude earthquake. The quake struck near Japan's Yonggi this morning. Buildings swayed in Taipei, and people were seen rushing on the street, but no significant damage has been reported. Japan to the north briefly issued an alert about a possible 1 meter tsunami for its southern Okinawa island chain, but lifted it after an hour with no sign of high waves of damage. Japanese meteorological agency said the earthquake's depth was very shallow. Meanwhile, Taiwan's Central Weather Bureau said it detected 2 earthquakes, one measuring 6.3 and the other a magnitude 5.0 east of their Hualien County. Emergency service officials said the quake caused an electricity transformer to explode, sparking the fire, which an elderly man died. The U.S.-based Pacific Tsunami Warning Center said a destructive Pacific-wide tsunami was not expected. Over to the Philippines now, where the Philippines military chief has called on China to stop its work on reclaiming land in a disputed territory in the South China Sea. General Gegro Jipang said the Chinese aggressiveness was causing tensions in the region. His comments come as the Philippines begin one of its largest joint military exercises with the U.S. This year's Boklam exercises involved more than 11,000 personnel, the biggest showing in 15 years. China claims almost the whole of the South China Sea, resulting in overlapping claims with several other Asian nations, including Vietnam and the Philippines. They say China is illegally reclaiming land in contested areas to create artificial islands with facilities that could potentially be used for military use. Staying in China, China's President Xi Jinping has signed agreements with Pakistan promising investment of $46 billion. The focus of spending is on building a Chinese-Pakistani Economic Corridor, or CPEC, a network of roads, railway, and pipelines between the longtime allies. There were once some 1,800 miles from Gwandar in Pakistan to China's western Xinjiang region. The projects will give China direct access to the Indian Ocean and beyond. This marks a major advance in China's plans to boost its influence in Central and South Asia, according to correspondents in the region, and far exceeds the U.S. spending in Pakistan. Pakistan for China is now of pivotal importance. This has to succeed and be to succeed. Reuters and ITN quoted Musad Hossain Saeed, chairman of the Pakistani Parliament's Defense Community. Pakistan, for its part, hopes the investment will strengthen its struggling economy and help it end chronic power shortages in its country. And China's still in the news as we continue with this next story. The country of Venezuela has received $5 billion from China in financing. According to Venezuelan's President Nicolas Maduro, the money was for development, he said on Sunday, but gave no further details. The announcement comes 3 months after Mr. Maduro traveled to China, a major investor in the region. Venezuela is suffering from an acute economic crisis as the price of main export oil has almost halved over a year. The opposition accuses the government of mismanagement. Mr. Maduro visited Beijing back in January and said at the time that China would invest more than $20 billion in Venezuela. He did not make clear in a Sunday announcement if this latest $5 billion was part of that larger sum. David Cameron has told ITV News that British voters need to realize the frightening prospect of a potential Labour SNP government. And as the ITV News' James Mates reports, pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, as the ITV News' James Mates reports, David Cameron says that he thinks it's very important that everyone understands what is at stake at this election, and frankly, have just got much higher with the prospects of an Ed Miliband and SNP government. Here is James Mates' report.
In the goods yards and sidings of Crewe, one of the great rail hubs in the heart of England, the Prime Minister had come to speak about Scotland, or more specifically, the threat he thinks Scotland might be about to pose to the rest of the UK. Surrounded by both party faithful and rail yard workers, his speech was dominated by one woman, Nicola Sturgeon, and the mischief she was planning with Ed Miliband. In short, get ready for nightmare on Downing Street.
It might be a match made in heaven for them, but it is a match made in hell for the British economy.
Your strategy again today is to try and frighten voters about an Ed Miliband SNP government, but the polls are suggesting they're not scaring so easily. Are you going to have to rethink?
I think it's really important everyone understands what is at stake at this election. The stakes, frankly, have just got much, much higher, and the prospects of an Ed Miliband SNP government, I think, frankly, are very frightening.
Nick Clegg and David Cameron may not agree on very much anymore, but on this issue of the SNP holding the balance of power, they are as one.
There's absolutely no chance that the Liberal Democrats will enter into a pact, an alliance, a deal or a coalition with a party which at the end of the day wants to pull our country apart.
A poll for ITV News this evening suggests the British public also leaning to that view, almost 60% saying they don't want the SNP to play a role in the event of a hung parliament. Our less scientific survey on the streets of Leeds today found much the same.
Actually, I find it slightly worrying that Labour are attempting to join with such a nationalist protester.
As long as the UK is the UK, and Great Britain is Great Britain, and they're part of it, and they're entitled to have a say.
I think the economy would be much worse if SNP was in coalition with Labour.
There are some concerns in Tory ranks at what this campaign against a Miliband SNP government may do for an already fragile United Kingdom. Although tomorrow, Sir John Major, the last Tory to win a majority at Westminster, will give David Cameron's strategy his public support. A strategy that now goes as far at a rally in Stockport this evening as holding aloft an SNP manifesto.
It would be the longest and most expensive ransom note in the history of British politics.
Tory strategists believe the issue of Scotland is not going away. They say they hear a great deal about it on the doorsteps and believe it will start to show up in the polls. Expect to hear a great deal more about it in the next 2.5 weeks. James Mates, ITV News. Stop.
Our thanks to James Mates of ITV News for his continuing coverage of the UK election. Stay with us at the Evan Miller Report. We will bring you the latest on the elections as it becomes available. The EU has set out a package of measures to try to ease the migrant boat crisis in the Mediterranean, according to the BBC. Its Triton patrolling service will be strengthened and a military mandate sought to destroy people smugglers' boats. An emergency summit of EU leaders will be held on Thursday. Meanwhile, Italian police arrested 2 survivors from a sinking off Libya on suspicion of people trafficking. A Coast Guard vessel carrying survivors arrived in Sicily late today. It is believed the 2 were the captain and a crew member from the boat that foundered on Sunday, according to Italian media. The boat docked at Catania, bringing a group who had originally been taken to Malta after being rescued. The EU's foreign policy chief Federica Mogherini said the 10-point package set out at talks in Luxembourg was a strong reaction from the EU to the tragedies and, quote, shows a new sense of urgency and political will. We are developing a truly European sense of solidarity in fighting human trafficking, finally so, unquote. The measures include an increase in the financial resources of Frontex, which runs the EU's Mediterranean rescue service, Triton, and an extension of Triton's operational area. The EU, had been criticized over the scope of Triton, which replaced the larger Italian operation Mare Nostrum at the end of last year. The civilian and military operation to destroy the people smugglers' boats would need a mandate signed off by the European Council. Other points include joint processing of asylum applications within 2 months of their being lodged, fingerprinting and recording of all migrants, an EU pilot project on migrant resettlement, which would be voluntary, offer of return travel packages, and immigration liaison officers in key countries. Stay with us here at the Evan Miller Report. We will also keep an eye on that story and bring you the latest as developments out of the Mediterranean become available. A Spanish boy armed with a crossbow and a machete killed a substitute teacher and wounded 4 people at his school in Barcelona today, police said. The unidentified boy was detained by police as a suspect after the attack. That saw 2 other teachers and 2 students injured. Authorities said he won't face criminal charges because he's under 14. The attack, which took place just after 9:30 a.m., sowed terror in the high school, according to Fox News, in a working-class neighborhood in Spain's second-largest city. School attacks are extremely rare in Spain. A regional police spokeswoman said the boy had a crossbow and a machete, but she was unable to say which weapon caused the man's death. She said the investigation was being carried out under secrecy orders because, she had no further details. That's what I need to say. She spoke on condition of anonymity because police regulations prevent her from being identified by name. The boy was taken to a hospital for a psychiatric evaluation, said Jose Miguel Company, a spokesman for the Barcelona prosecutor's office. Authorities did not disclose of how the attack played out, but according to witnesses, she and others hid in her classroom after hearing the screams and left along with students only after a fire alarm sounded. Another student, Paula Amayo-Lalas, forgive me if I butchered the name, she knew the suspect and that he didn't have problems, but he was kind of a loner. Other students would pick on him. The 2 wounded students and one of the injured teachers were taken to Barcelona hospitals for treatment, while the other injured teacher was treated at the scene and didn't need hospitalization. The students gathered in stunned silence outside the school for students ages 12 to 16, hugging each other. Students said the teacher killed was a suspect working at the school for about a week. Police in Barcelona did not identify the suspect because of his age. In Spain, children under 14 are not held legally responsible for crimes and cannot be jailed or placed in juvenile detention centers. But they can be sent to mental health institutions, said a spokesman for Spain's Justice Ministry who spoke on condition of anonymity because of ministry policy. A national police spokesman could not recall any fatal school attacks in the country's recent history. Moving on to U.S. news, and this is going to be one for those of you to have a look. This will be one for you to stomach. It'll be a little bit difficult for you to stomach. An Air Force veteran who resigned in 2008 after posing nude for Playboy was briefly detained and banned from Valdosta State University in Georgia last week after she took an American flag from a group of protesters who were using it as a floor mat. Ugh. Now our blood is going to boil. Michelle Manhart said she was not planning to take the flag from the protesters, but wanted to take some sort of action after learning about the group's recent campus demonstrations, the Valdosta Daily Times reported. Ms. Manhart said she was detained by VSU police officers who then returned the flag to the demonstrators. She admitted to the Daily Times that she resisted arrest after seeing the flag being returned. The group, who declined to identify themselves to reporters, elected not to press charges against Ms. Manhart, but campus police issued her a criminal trespass warning, which bans her from any university activity, the Daily Times reported. She said she's planning an event for Wednesday that shows support for the flag and American military service members. In a statement posted on the college's website, Valdosta State University President William J. McKinney said the American flag, quote, represents everything that is best about our country, but said the demonstrators had a right to protest. As the Supreme Court has held, one of those things is the right to free speech, which includes the right to disrespect even the symbol of our country, Mr. McKinney said. Has the right to disrespect that symbol. That's just disgusting for him to say. Ms. Manhart, a former Air Force military instructor, was placed under investigation in 2007 and eventually demoted after posing nude for Playboy. She resigned from the service in 2008, the Daily Times reported. And, Jay, while I cannot condone her for posing for Playboy, which will make a few men rich but enslave thousands of men, I do have some respect for her for at least making good on her service in the military by trying to protect this, the sanctity of the American flag. There we go. Any comments on this story?
Disturbing, to say the least. Someone doesn't have to go work for Playboy. I'm sure she could have got another job elsewhere, but, well, that's all I got to say on that story. Sometimes these poor people who work in the military, sometimes they have a hard time finding a job, and sometimes it's they find it the hardest to find a job these days. So I certainly wish her the best of luck. I'm not supporting her in any way with the Playboy thing, but it's unfortunate she had to go down to stripping and taking pictures with Playboy to make money.
Very unfortunate.
Anyway.
Moving on. I've got one from Newport Richey, Florida, from the Miami Herald. A Florida mother drove her 13-year-old daughter to a fight with a peer and encouraged the girl to brawl, according to officials today, and 2 bystanders recorded the incident on video. Tabitha Ann Bennett was arrested and charged with child abuse, assault, and battery offenses, according to Pasco County Sheriff's officials. On April 12th, Bennett sent a Facebook message to a 14-year-old girl telling her that she was bringing her daughter to fight her, deputies said. Bennett told authorities that she felt the other teen was bullying her daughter, so she encouraged her to fight. According to an arrest affidavit, Bennett drove up to the fight location and exited her car with a folding knife in her hand. Deputies say at least 2 people recorded the fight and posted video footage on social media. Officials say Bennett was captured kicking and pulling the hair of the 14-year-old and was heard and encouraging her daughter to fight by yelling, "Get on top of her and kick her, you know what." Bennett was released from jail Sunday on $10,500 bail. It was unclear today whether she had retained an attorney who could be reached for comment. And if I hear anything else on this story, I'll definitely bring it to you because I'm one who discourages bullying in all of its forms. I mean, some people take that to extremes, but my basic principles on bullying, at least in my household, will be don't do it, don't tolerate it, report it. Because I know we can't entirely stop it, at least in this life, but we can do something to minimize it. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't encourage your kids to get into fights. That's what I'm trying to get at. And before I get in a fight with anyone in the comments section of this, I better take it to break. But when we come back, Walmart workers from stores who are closed for plumbing issues say that they don't buy that story. A Southwest customer who says that one of her family members was killed isn't buying that story. But Hollywood has bought the stories of Jurassic World and Star Wars and are bringing you the latest trailers for those in our entertainment report. That and Jay, what do you got for us?
Thank you very much, Corey. Also on tonight's program, in the D.C. news tonight and Supreme Court news, U.S. justices toss a ruling that upheld North Carolina's voter redistricting plan. Also, Florida's governor says state employees must end drug testing dispute. We have the latest in that. And tonight, it's presidential politics tonight, but in an unusual way. Where does the 2016 presidential candidates stand on the marijuana? The story coming from the city of marijuana when we return to the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source. And we'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, our discoveries have helped drive the childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to 80%. And we share our research all across America.
I'm 80% sure I'll spoil my kids. I'm 80% sure I'll break boys' hearts. I'm 80% sure we're chick magnets.
80%? I'll take those odds.
Give thanks for the healthy kids in your life and give to those who are not. Go to stjude.org or shop wherever you see the St. Jude logo.
And it's time for the business report on the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan. Jason will be back with DC News in just a few more moments. But first, the Dow was up 208 points at 18,034. The NASDAQ gained 62 points at 49.94. And the S&P 500 picked up 19 points to end up at 2,100. Not a bad day. They ended sharply higher today after China moved to stimulate its slowing economy, while investors bought up technology stocks on cautious optimism on upcoming earnings reports. This from Reuters. In the second industry-wide cut in 2 months, China's central bank on Sunday reduced the amount of cash that banks must hold as reserves in a move to help spur economic growth. A 2.28% rise in Apple shares led the U.S. market higher, along with a 3.42% jump in IBM. After the bell, IBM reported its 12th straight drop in quarterly revenue as it shed unprofitable businesses to focus on cloud computing. The earnings exceeded low expectations, and IBM shares edged down 0.17% in extended trade. Yeah, it was a very rough day for them, up and down. But at any rate, the IT component of the S&P 500 closed up 1.7% today. Greece's cash-strapped government has ordered reserves from state agencies to be placed in a basket account to help the country meet obligations, officials said today, as bond market traders fretted over the risk of default. This from the AP. Following an emergency decree which has been sent to Parliament for ratification, the funds from anything from hospitals to local government will be moved to an account at the Bank of Greece to be made available for short-term loans to the state. The move is the latest sign that Athens' coffers are running dry in the wake of the new left-wing government's dispute with creditors over an economic reform program deemed necessary to get remaining bailout funds paid. The dispute has held up the payment of 7.2 billion euros, or $7.7 billion, from Greece's international bailout. Money will most likely need to pay loans due over the coming few weeks. Greece's lenders from the 19-country Eurozone and the IMF are demanding reforms that include sweeping changes to pensions and labor rules. From Greece's Syriza government, many of the demands are considered counter to its electoral mandate. Syriza was elected on a promise to bring an end to stifling austerity that many in the country blamed for the severe economic hardship of the past few years. Greek Energy Minister Panagiotis Lafazanis, said in a week interview that lenders were seeking submission and surrender from Greece and not a fair compromise. An impasse between Athens and creditors has ratcheted up fears that Greece will run out of money soon and leave the euro currency. That's evident in the bond markets where Greek borrowing costs, a gauge of default risk, spiked higher again today with the rate of 3-year bonds touching 28%. Many in the markets think this coming Friday could be the last crunch point. Greek Finance Minister Yanis Varoufakis is due to meet his counterparts from the Eurozone at a meeting in the Latvian capital of Riga. Some hope of progress emerged with comments from a senior IMF official that bailout talks had gathered a little more momentum, but that pressure was growing on Greece. Paul Thompson told the German business daily Handelsblatt in an interview published today that Athens could have enough money to meet debt and other commitments until June, but would need to reach an agreement before then. Greece has to pay around 1 billion euros to the IMF by mid-May. And judging by the things that are going on in Greece right now, it doesn't look very good for them. And Walmart workers are fighting back against the retailer's decision last week to close 5 stores in 4 states for what the company says are plumbing repairs. This from Fortune. Workers at the company's Pico Rivera, California store, who are associated with Our Walmart, a group that advocates for better pay, say the closings are retaliatory in nature. They filed a charge with the National Labor Relations Board today, claiming that the termination of more than 500 employees at the Pico Rivera Walmart constituted an unfair labor practice. Last week, the retail giant, which employs 1.3 million workers in the U.S., temporarily closed 5 stores, 2 in Texas and 1 each in California, Florida, and Oklahoma, for 6 months of plumbing repairs. The stores closed at 7 p.m. on April 13th, which gave workers just a few hours' notice that they were losing their jobs. The company provided 2 months of paid leave for both full and part-time workers. Employees could try to transfer to a different Walmart during that time. Full-time workers who fail to find another Walmart job are eligible for 19, but part-time workers aren't entitled to that benefit. They're eligible for severance full-time workers are... I'm trying to say that they are eligible for... The full-time workers are eligible for severance starting June 19th, but not the part-time workers. Come on, Skype, clean up here. A Walmart spokesman told Fortune on Friday that deciding to close the store is not a decision we make lightly, but after careful consideration, we felt it was necessary to make these repairs so we can better serve our customers and the community in the long run. He said Walmart regularly assesses the condition of its stores and that due to ongoing plumbing issues that will require extensive repairs. Try saying that after a few... Yeah, I know, Jay. And that due to ongoing plumbing issues that will require extensive repairs, the company would need to temporarily close those stores. Walmart says it intends to reopen them when the plumbing issues are resolved. Well, at least they're willing to close their stores and do the repairs and get them back up and running in tip-top shape. But at the same... And that's something that the folks at Kmart don't do. I mean, I remember going into my local Kmart before it closed, and it looked like it needed a lot of repairs, Jay.
Well, I watched the local coverage on this Walmart story, and I see these employees lining up and protesting. So, would you rather have customers walk into a store and shop with no plumbing in the store? And I mean, if it's a super Walmart and you got these food service departments and they got no water and no good plumbing, so you expect...
That's a health violation.
It is a health violation. You can't keep a store open with the plumbing out. So for the people, those employees, or former employees, I should say, that are out protesting this, they're trying to get in the pro-union movement to unionize
Get
Walmart.
a job, you bums!
Ooh, Corey is more feisty about this. I was just about to say, get off your fat asses and go get a real job.
Yes, I just said a little more politely, I think.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes right down to it, I can't stand people who are complaining that a company puts them out of their job because of a plumbing problem. And Corey Evan did state that most people will be getting 2 months compensation, which should give them enough time to be able to find a job. And I do understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the California economy is probably somewhat worse than the rest of the nation and is not reflective of what President Obama's unemployment numbers are technically. And
but there are, especially in the warehouse area, there are plenty of jobs to look for.
Yeah, but I think Walmart's playing the smart approach here by giving 2 months compensation pay, at least to the full-time workers. Don't know about the part-times. It's probably on a as-case basis for each employee. But really, Walmart's trying to handle their problems, their plumbing problems in their stores. They're trying to handle the problem. It's better than not handling the problem, and then we have a bunch of customer complaints, and it's on every national newscast in the country. Come on, people.
Well, there is one thing. They could have given a little bit more notice, but at the same time, at least they're overall doing what's right.
Still. All right, Corey Evan, he has the business news, as I'm ticked off about Walmart workers who are just being utter blowhards. Thank you very much, Corey. All right, on to some other blowhards that we have in the news. That's DC news. The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday threw out a court ruling that upheld a legislative redistricting plan in the state of North Carolina and has asked for the case to be reconsidered in light of its decision in a similar case involving the state of Alabama's voting districts. North Carolina's Supreme Court ruled back in December that voting maps drawn back in 2011 by the state's Republican-led legislature was constitutional, despite being declared as an effort to diminish the influence of black voters. The groups challenging the maps then asked the U.S. Supreme Court to decide if the redistricting plan constituted unlawful racial gerrymandering designed to give Republicans a political advantage. Over to Florida now, where Florida's Governor Rick Scott and the state's largest union of public employees agreed to end a long-running dispute over the broad use of random drug testing of the state workers, according to a court filing on Monday. If approved by a federal judge, the agreement would end the court battle over Scott's 2011 executive order requiring state employees to submit to mandatory universalist drug testing without suspicion of wrongdoing. The order was aimed at the state's workers and agencies under the government's authority, accounting for about 77% of the state workforce. It was challenged then in court by the American Federation of State and County and Municipal Employees, which represents about 34,000 of the workers potentially affected. All right, folks, it's time for a little visit to the city of marijuana, and this has to do with the presidential candidates. It's April 20th, or for the 20th, a day when marijuana enthusiasts gather, legally or otherwise, to celebrate the joys of smoking pot, a sort of stoner 4th of July holiday, if you're really excited about it. That doesn't include this newsman, nor does it include Corey Evan. Last year, President Obama gave weed activists a boost when he said he considers marijuana no more dangerous than alcohol. Well, as well documented, I smoked pot as a kid, he said, and I continue quoting the president, and I view it as a bad habit and a vice, not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person, up through a big chunk of my adult life, Obama told the New Yorker. He continued to say, I don't think it's more dangerous than alcohol, end of quote. So where does the crop of current and possible 2016 presidential candidates stand on the issues? Jeb the Common Core Bush said, quote, I smoked marijuana when I was at Andover. It was pretty common. But the former Florida governor has taken a hardline approach when it comes to legislation. Last fall, Jeb the Common Core Bush released a statement urging Florida voters to reject a ballot initiative that would have legalized medical marijuana in the Sunshine State. Moving on to other candidates on the list here, and I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Paul is perhaps the most vocal among the 2016 candidates when it comes to weed. Last month, Paul joined Democratic Senators Cory Booker and Kristen Gillibrand in introducing a historic bipartisan bill that would end the federal ban on medical marijuana, allowing patients, doctors, and businesses in states that have already passed medical marijuana laws to participate in those programs without fear of federal prosecution. In an interview recently with Yahoo News, Katie Couric, Paul called out Jeb the Common Core Bush for his opposition to Florida's medical marijuana initiative. Moving on to Scott Walker, who is a possible GOP presidential candidate. Last year, Walker signed a bill legalizing cannabis, or CBD, an anti-seizure drug that has been outlawed in his state because it contains a small amount of THC, the active chemical agreement in marijuana. But Walker still believes marijuana is a getaway drug that should remain illegal in the state of Wisconsin, well, at least for now. He said, quote, I don't think you're going to see anything serious anytime soon here, but if other states did, maybe in the legislative session, there'd be more talk about, Walker told local Fox 6 News last year. It may be something that resonates in the future, but I don't see any movement for it right now. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who announced last week, said in a 2014 interview with the Tampa Bay Times that he supports legalizing medical marijuana as long as it doesn't get you high. He said, quote, if there are medical uses of marijuana that don't have the elements that are mind-altering or create the high, but to alleviate whatever condition it may be they're trying to alleviate, that is something I would be open to, he said. Like the Common Core Bush, Rubio opposed last year's ballot initiative that would have made medical marijuana legal in Florida. Texas Senator Ted Cruz's position has shifted positions on the issue of legislation. In 2014, the senator blasted the Obama administration for not interfering with states like Colorado and Washington. He said, quote, the Obama administration's approach to drug policy is to simply announce that across the country it's going to stop enforcing certain drug laws, Cruz told Reason magazine. Now, that may or may not be good policy, but I would suggest that should concern anyone. It should even concern libertarians who support that policy outcome, because the idea that the president simply says criminal laws that are on the books, we're going to ignore them, that's a very dangerous president. But at the Political Action Conference in February, Cruz now says he supports Colorado's experiment with the legislation. He recently said if the citizens of Colorado decide they want to go down that road, that's their prerogative. I personally don't agree with it, but that's their right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have a little personal note on Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, here you go again. First you say you're against the common crud, as Corey Evan so nicely puts it when he does global socialism, and then we find you donating to Common Core schools. First you say you're against pot, now you're for pot? Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, do I see a conservative version of John F. Kerry, or what? My goodness. Can't get it straight. And this list continues to go on here with other possible candidates here. I will just go ahead and fast forward to the main Democratic side, just to be fair for our friends on the left. While the Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton, her husband has uttered the most infamous response to the pot question, saying, "I didn't inhale in Americans' political history." Hillary Clinton says she has never tried marijuana. "I didn't do it when I was young. I'm not going to start now," Clinton told CNN last year. On medical marijuana, the former secretary said it should be available under appropriate circumstances, but more research is needed. She said, "I think we need to be very clear about the benefits of marijuana use for medical purposes." She said, "I don't think we've done enough research yet." On the legalization of recreational weed, Clinton says she wants to see how it works in the states of Colorado and Washington first. States are the laboratories of democracy. I want to see what the evidence is. Well, while the legislation of marijuana may be a campaign issue in 2016, past use of the drug won't be one, ladies and gentlemen. And, ladies and gentlemen, it's not often that I agree with Hillary Clinton, but she may be right in waiting to see what the states of Colorado and Washington State do first with these new medical marijuana laws before she makes the decision, unlike Ted Cruz, who can't seem to make up his mind on two main issues. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes tonight's DC News. It's now time for tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Yeah, park your bottoms, people. We gotta get right to this. A woman filed a wrongful death suit today against Southwest Airlines, claiming crew members mistook her husband's medical emergency for unruly behavior aboard a California flight and didn't assist him, according to ABC News. Richard Ilsusen, I can't pronounce this thing for the life of me. Never mind, I'll post it up later. You can read it for yourself. Was found unconscious after the flight from Oakland to Orange County landed last year, and he died the next day at a hospital, according to the lawsuit filed in Alameda County Superior Court by his wife, Kelly Ilsusen. Herself a Southwest Airlines flight attendant. He had suffered a blood clot. Southwest Airlines said in a statement that it was saddened to learn of the death, but its flight attendants handled the incident appropriately and professionally. Ilsusen ran to the bathroom about 10 minutes before the September 2014 flight was set to land, according to the suit, which also names his 3 kids as plaintiffs. The suit seeks unspecified damages. And Timothy Lohman, the Cleveland police officer who shot and killed Tamir Rice, and his partner Frank Garmbach are asking a federal judge to halt a lawsuit filed against them until the criminal investigation and possible prosecution into their actions is completed. In a motion filed Monday afternoon by city attorneys, both officers seek to protect their Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Halting the complaint until the criminal case is over would mean that Lehman and Garmbach can give depositions and testify at trial, quote, without the fear that their answers may be used against them in a separate criminal proceeding where the stakes are significantly higher and their liberty is directly at risk, the motion says. And on that note, I declare today's Lawsuits Across America case dismissed. And because of time, I can only tell you that the box office numbers were as follows. Furious 7 held on to number 1 with $29.2 million in new receipts. Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 brought in number 2 at $23.8 million, despite all the critics warning against us. And Unfriended, with Shelley Hennig and Moses Jacob Storm, brought in number 3 at $15.8 million. And that is your entertainment report as much as I can get in today. I will go ahead and post up my stories from our global socialism and the main entertainment reports that I was scheduled to bring you on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. That's all I've got for you today. Hope to entertain you again tomorrow. Till then, Jay, you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Corey. And that is the Evan Miller Report for this Monday, April the 20th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and on our Twitter at EM Radio Report. You'll be glad you did. For all of us here at the Evan Miller Report and SHR Media, we thank you very much for listening. Coming up next is the weather and then the Exceptional Conservative Show with Ken McClinton.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now here's the national weather forecast as Corey stated with Chris Fox of the BBC Met Office. Good night, everybody.
Of the United States, thanks to this area of low pressure, with some severe storms now breaking out and working towards the mid-Atlantic states. Could be some hail and gusty winds from these. The weather system, though, on Tuesday will continue to bring some heavy snow in Canada, particularly in Ontario, with another belt of heavy snow working in here. We could see accumulations of around 25 centimetres of snow, perhaps 40 centimetres in one or two areas. And the winds will become quite gusty on Tuesday as well, gusting to 40 miles an hour. So there could be transport disruption and poor visibility at times too. The rain clearing away gradually from most of the eastern US. Further west, across British Columbia, there'll be some scattered showers, a bit more in the way of cloud in Vancouver, where it's likely to feel a bit cooler with temperatures just into the upper 50s. A cool breeze blowing down the western coast as well of the United States, but a lot of dry weather, often a fair amount of cloud. Band of heavy thundery rain extending into Florida. That's all tied in with our weather system. With the weather system through across the eastern US, so most areas will become dry and bright, but a fair breeze blowing across the New England area. Temperatures in New York at around 64 Fahrenheit. Looking at the forecast for the next few days, a similar kind of day in New York on Wednesday before it turns markedly cooler on Thursday, with temperatures dropping to 52 Fahrenheit. Looking at the forecast across the Pacific Northwest, a bright day on Wednesday with some sunshine, but turning a bit cloudier by Thursday.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.